Hello, welcome back to Outro, the show about shows. Here on the writer Albert Lanier channel. I, of course, am the writer Albert Lanier here with another episode of Outro. Not only the show about shows, the show dealing with shows. And I just was on a show recently called the Mind of Cy Marie podcast. And you can find the Mind of Cy Marie podcast with, of course, yours truly. The name of the episode is 31 Years as a Writer. You can find that at the Mind of Cy Marie podcast channel on YouTube. She's also on Substack, so you can find the podcast there and on other podcast platforms. And she also has a newsletter on Substack. So just stating that, especially since I'm somebody with a couple of newsletters on Substack, I just wanted to kind of promote that or let people know about that. In any event, I was on the Mind of Cy Marie podcast earlier this week, and it was a great interview. In fact, I think it's one of the best interviews I did this year. So it was a really good show. You know, one of the things I'd have to say is I think she thought about the questions and thought seriously about the questions she was going to ask me. I get some interesting questions when I do interviews every year, but these were among the more interesting questions because there was stuff that I'd been asked that I wasn't asked on other shows, and I haven't been asked on other shows, both this year and last year, and probably in the past few years. So I'd like to kind of give her credit for really thinking up some interesting questions. There's some really good questions there. Getting into some other areas that I don't normally get into in interviews. So I, of course, I was there to do what I normally do, which is promote my newsletters, Final Cut and Retro Review on Substack. If you haven't already, please check them out and subscribe to Final Cut at allanier.substack.com. That's for Final Cut. And thumbsdown.substack.com for Retro Review. That's thumbsdown.substack.com for Retro Review and allanier.substack.com for Final Cut, my newsletters. So, okay. So anyway, let's talk about the show and doing it. Like I already said, it was a really good show because of the interview. The interview itself was different from others I've done this year because of some of the topics that were brought up. One of the topics that was brought up was AI. And I haven't really talked about AI in interviews because nobody's really brought up AI in interviews. And it's not something that I've really kind of have been, banging the boards talking about in regards to not just doing media, but even on social media. I really don't talk about AI. So I'll just come out and say this. I'm anti-AI. I'm an enemy of AI. I have nothing but contempt and loathing for AI. As I mentioned in the show, meaning the Mind of Cy Marie podcast, AI is an eradicator, an annihilator, and a destroyer. It has annihilated and destroyed jobs. It has eradicated careers, and it will continue to eradicate and destroy jobs and careers. I just saw an interview today, a clip today, where I guess an expert was interviewed. I think it was by someone from 60 Minutes, and he was describing the impacts in the different professions and said that 40% of jobs would be impacted by AI. 40% of the workplace, 40% of employees, 40% of occupations, 40% in the future. So that's 40% of individuals who will not have jobs, not have careers, not have livelihoods and vocations. They will not have that. So that's what you have to consider. That's what you have to keep in mind. So So that's what you have to keep in mind when you're dealing with AI, artificial intelligence. So I have been roundly and absolutely opposed to AI for a number of years now. In fact, one of the reasons I retired from freelancing and journalism is because of AI. If I haven't already said that in an interview, I think I have once or twice. But if I haven't already, then I'll note it now. One of the reasons I retired at the age of 46 from my career as a print journalist and as a freelance writer was AI. I became aware of AI. I'd read, if not an article, then a couple articles about it. And I saw what I read enough about the technology that I knew this is going to be horrible. This is going to be absolutely terrible. And it's time for me to kind of move on, head on down the road. In fact, actually, not head on down the road, but get off the trail, and find greener pastures elsewhere. And so AI is one of the reasons I retired. So I've been anti AI for a long time. And we got to talk about AI to a certain extent in that interview. It was not extensively. It wasn't a really, really extensive, complete discussion about it because I was there to promote my newsletters and my podcast. We also talked about journalism, and I thought it was interesting because she had asked me about there were a couple of interesting questions she asked me, and one was about the kind of state of journalism. And one of the points that I made was that I think journalists are now targets. They're targets. I think you have people that are doxing journalists, or at least did, putting out their information. You have a situation now where they're also going to be targeted in lawsuits because of reporting or potential lawsuits. You have someone like Taylor Lorenz, who wrote an article, I think it was in Wired magazine, about these online influencers, YouTubers, I guess, that are taking dark money from Democratic sources or something like that, or from various sources. And I think one of them was David Pakman. And David Pakman has been saying, I don't know if he's serious about this, but he's saying he intends to sue Taylor Lorenz over this article. And, again, you look at the situation, journalists are targets. Like I said, it was a very good interview. And it was a really good interview. And I really enjoyed doing the Mind of Cy Marie channel. So check it out. Again, it's on YouTube, the Mind of Cy Marie podcast channel. Go there and check it out. You can go to my YouTube channel. I think I have linked there in the community page, because I always promote my interviews there. So you can go there and check it out. I forget to tell people that, but you can go there and check it out if you want, or you can go to the Mind of Cy Marie podcast. You can also go to Substack if you're a Substack subscriber or not. You can go there and check out the podcast there on Substack. And on whatever other outlets. I think it's also on Spotify and whatever other podcast outlets that it's on. And check it out. It's a really good interview. I enjoyed doing it. And until next time, and until I do another interview, whenever that is, it's been pretty consistent this year with Outro. It's been a good year in regards to it. I have to say at this point, it's because it's September. It's been a good year in regards to doing interviews. Been doing some new shows and invited to do some shows. So it's been a really good year in terms of not only promotion, far better than last year, but also media in general, doing interviews in the media. All right. And that's it for another episode of Outro. I am Albert Lanier. This is the Writer Albert Lanier channel, signing off. Bye, folks.